Hello, everyone. Welcome to this session. Today, we will talk about the gRPC API management with Kubernetes-native API management platform, right? So before that, we go into the detail of how we have implemented. Let me brief about myself. So I'm Dushan Abeyruwan, and I'm a Director of Solutions Architecture at WSO2. I believe you must have heard about our company, what we do, but I will debrief about what we do, basically. So if you want to connect with me through, please scan it through the barcode, and I'm pretty happy to connect with you guys and discuss the interesting projects as a company we are developing, right? Okay, so get into the API management. So you guys heard about that this is the concept. This is basically the known concept that why we need API management as a life cycle, right? So I believe when you're developing, because we are in the gRPC conference and most of you guys developing applications, backend application, B2B applications, applications that connecting consumer applications, right? And I've been to like many great sessions since morning, hearing what the developer commitments and the practical challenges they are facing. So in every case, it's like, so what the main problem, right? So when you have many B2B point-to-point connections, still the same problem that we'll have to resolve all the time. So that's why the API management is a real deal to resolve with. So as it mentioned that it's basically API management solution is allowing you to secure exposing digital applications, providing AI tools to control the application controllability, and then the observability, right? So basically we need to essentially resolve these problems when we have any application. It doesn't matter when you have gRPC application or anything. So what we are doing as a company, so we are an open source company, being in this industry almost 20 years, and we are developing products like API management, integrations, low-code, pro-code, right? And then identity access management solutions. And basically within the API management also, we are in the industry like almost 18 years. So we are the first few like incumbent who introduces API management solution to the market. And then of course, then other vendors catching up quite quickly. So basically, if you look at the API management as SaaS solution, it is available open source. And even someone want to download and customize and make it run in your on-premises data center or maybe the cloud hybrid, yes, our tool is there to use. And then, of course, the SaaS solution, which is a Bijura, we call Bijura. This is our SaaS platform, that's the same solution that available as API management solution, SaaS option. So basically, if you look at this solution even, so we have this differentiated, the control plane and the data plane part. So if you look at the control plane, basically we offer different types of commodities, which is a Kubernetes-native gateway, which is I will talk about too, how we have incorporate gRPC protocols through that one. And then, of course, we have this immutable gateway based on certain requirements, like certain customer requirements that you want to run your data workloads in a private, data centers, right? So then you could use this immutable gateway construct. And of course, universal gateway that you can support mediation, support multiple protocols, and so on and so forth. Of course, we do support API federation, which is that if you want to manage AWS or Google PG gateways, right? So we have this third-party gateway management support ability through the central control plane. So we are onboarding more and more gateways in coming up solutions, coming up releases as well. So this is a bit of like a high-level sort of like an overview of the API management. And of course, this is the most important part that nowadays the AI is become more and more topic in the industry, right? So what we do is we do support API design, testing, searching, and governance through the AI capabilities. If you want to learn more about these capabilities, please come to our documentation, or maybe you can connect me through so we can dive through all these features in depth. So, but let's move on to the next section that gives you like more of overview of what this component structure all about. So starting with the control plane that we provide this API security lifecycle, governance, and of course managing ingress and egress API. And of course, what we do support is API development design, and of course, API monetization capabilities. Plugging with all the tools available in the market. Choreo Connect is our own analytics tool. And then we recently acquired Moisif, about that product. So we have like a first class supportability to that product as well, and all the other observability tools. And of course, if you look at the gateway construct, so gateway construct type of gateways that we do support, and gRPC is one of the protocol that we are onboarding to our gateway component, which is really important for this internal B2B integration. And of course, the federation. And of course, integrating with SaaS systems and providing the developer extension for adding APIs. So this is more of like API management component in design. Still, I won't go into detail. So if you want to know about this information, about this product in detail, I would welcome you to join with me in after this session. So yeah, let's focus quickly on why gRPC API management is required, right? So as I said that in the beginning, it's a very performant protocol that you could deploy to integrate with internal application development, especially for inter-application communications, right? But still, when you deploy these applications, I believe within this group audience, you might implement all these applications, and you might know that, okay, if I want to implement something, that I want to enforce some policies. How can I do that one, right? So the problem is that you might have to embed that policy into your application. The best designing always has been you need to decouple that one. So that's the requirement of gRPC and API management. So we can talk about that one in detail. So what are the problems again? So if you go through this requirements, security and access control, like you want to apply different type of security protocols, like right? Maybe you might need to bring a different type of third-party IDP to manage the security, right? And then second requirement is traffic governance, right? You need to limit the traffic rate, who you can access, how you can enforce policies for different user contexts, right? And then, of course, applying different type of operational policies, like you might have to do like header-based transformation, mediation, to restrict requests and responses based on the payload construct. So you have to do all this management. Those management problems are still there. And then, of course, plugin observability, and then, of course, when you have many APIs, gRPC is again an APIs, and then you need to manage all the versions of APIs, how you can get it done, how properly manage B2B conversation. So all these problems are still there. And those are the real key needs why you need this API management solution. So the resolution for that one is right now, we have incorporated and we built a API gateway community, which is called WSO2 Kubernetes Gateway. Earlier, we called this one as a API platform for Kubernetes. But you can scan through this QR code, and you can get to know about the design and architecture of this product. So basically, what we try to do here is that we work with this Kubernetes Gateway specification. And then what we do is, like, if you look at read through the API Kubernetes Gateway, it works with roots, right? Specification, right? And XSDs. So basically what we have done is we incorporate those specifications to implement with our gateway construct. So this gateway is basically built on top of Envoy. So generally what we are doing right now, if someone is familiar with the Kubernetes API specification, someone want to write a HTTP route, right? So they can still use that HTTP route specification. And what we have done is we have built certain adapters that convert those specifications where it will deploy into Envoy Gateway. And the beauty of this is that you can scale, and it'll become more of like a Kubernetes eco-friendly deployment. So you can scale it, and it has this automatic failover, load balancing. So this gateway has really become more of a commodity. So in our internal cloud solutions, we now more of a deploy this Kubernetes gateway in a production. So we have proved that, okay, it scale and address the throughput needs as well. So yeah, I again welcome you to read through this, the specification, how we have built it, and you will get a lot more information around that. Right. So since this is like more of like a short, session, I'll try to quickly go through and showcase some scenarios, how we have built up, and what are the gRPC use cases that you can think of, right? So I'm going through like few use cases. First is that deploying gRPC APIs, configure authentication, configure rate limiting, enable header modification, and implement this interceptor layer. So before that, I'll quickly show you something. You can quickly go to our documentation, which is the same thing. It's very easy that you have the quick start guidance, and following like few steps comes with, we already packed everything through the Helm charts. Just a matter of fundamental requirement is that you need to have Kubernetes, of course, Rancher, or any other cloud platform that you have Kubernetes. And then you just have to go through these steps and install the Kubernetes framework. So that has a fundamental. And once it is done, so it will ready to up and run. So I'll go through the components that it will install. So it will install multiple APK components that will be ready to run, right? So you don't need to customize it. If you want to customize it, of course, this Helm charts you can download and customize as you wish, right? So let me try to go through the presentation again. And then I will start with like deploying a gRPC application. So we'll go through the recording of the scenario. So here what we are doing is, before I'll get into more in detail, so there are two patterns, two methods if you want to deploy an gRPC API into the Kubernetes Gateway that you can follow. One is, as a developer, you can use the controllers like control APIs. So we do support two types of control. One is through the REST APIs, as well as the custom resources. So here, based on the developer preference, they can go and deploy the API. So here, the first way that we are doing is, the first thing we are doing is, we deploy the API using the REST API method. So here, what we are doing first, right? So we want to deploy backend services in this demo, which is the gRPC-enabled backend services. And then we try to control accessibility of that API through the Kubernetes Gateway, right? So let me try to play through that again, right? So yeah, we deploy the API. And then the second that we are doing is that we will check through the Kubernetes commands, through the namespaces, whether the backend has been deployed, and you will find that all the other components pods up and running. The next thing that we do is that we have a set of commands, standard command. We use the gRPC configuration and then the definition. So here what we are doing here, that I'll stop from here again. I'll explain the situation. So what we did basically, we use the API configuration and we generate a specification known as or the APK configuration. So it's coming from your protobuf. You point to the protobufs and it'll generate the specification for you. And then here, it'll come with the type and the information that the operations. And then you can introduce other operations like backend service and so on and so forth. So let me try to continue this. So you'll find out that the next step that what we are doing is we're adding the backend services. And here we go and add the APK configuration, the backend services. Here you can add any circuit breaker logic as well here, right? And then we will rename this API definition with the base path. Yeah, providing the ID because of if we want to identify this API specifically. And then we're gonna deploy this API into the Kubernetes Gateway. And then basically before that, what we're doing is the Kubernetes Gateway come up with its own IDP, the key generator, so key manager. So we generate the token, and then we'll check the API deployment. So the API has deployed and come with automatically the security enabled. And then the next step is that we will try to invoke this API. So we are using this generic curl command like gRPC curl command, and then we will invoke the API, right? So basically the idea of this is you deploy the API, it comes with the integrator security with the JW token, and then it will validate the API. So you just invoke the API. Yeah, so we'll find out that intended result is there. The next use case, I will quickly go through the next use case. The next use case is that, using the resource definition, custom resource definition. So the same way, if developers are pretty much comfortable working with the resource definition itself, so basically what you can do is you can point out the protobuf, it will generate the custom resource definitions for you, and then you can work around this custom resource definition applying all the policies you need. So here, what we are doing is, same like earlier previous session, we will get the APK definition, right? So we'll copy the commands or the APK configuration, and then basically what we are doing is we will output the CRS, the custom resource definition. So it will create the folder for us, and then unzip it, and then you will find out it will create for the API, the API definition, the roots, and then definition information, and so on and so forth, right? So you'll change all this information, and then if you need to apply any other additional policy, what you can do is just change it and deploy there. So basically, I'll wait for until it is deployed. All right. So we will check the API definition, right, and then it will deploy. So I'll quickly go through and finish up that part. And yeah, so the API has been deployed. apply the security token, and then you just invoke the API. So we talk about two methods. One is the REST API-based deployment. This is custom resource definition, which is like a YAML definition file that you want to deal with. So you can get it done to that part. The third use case I want to get it done, show you here is, let me go to, sorry. Right. So the second thing is, third use case is that how you can change authentication. So whenever you expose an API, you want to apply different type of authentication, right? Maybe it'll customize authentication. So what we do here is that since we have worked with these custom resource definitions, you can enable custom resource definition to a specific gateway if you wish, right? So that's the effort that we try to do here. So you define the authentication, and we just stating that, okay, you need to apply the security to the API, and then you deploy that authentication, right? So let's wait until it is getting deployed. Apply that authentication YAML file to the environment, and then now the authentication has applied. We can check the authentication through the security, right? And then it will showcase that, okay, this is authentication stuff. So then next you will do is, with that, we will generate the token, and then it will deploy, and we'll invoke the get use operation. So it will work. The next option is, if you wish to disable authentication for certain internal communication, you could enable that one for that API also. So what we are doing is right now, we disabling authentication, and we try to invoke this API. So generally it will fail, right? So it will fail if you put like -v command. So we'll find out that it will fail with the message. Now we'll go to, command. And then the next thing is, what we're going to do here is that we will do the configure rate limiting. So here, the requirement is that now you want to invoke API, but you want to enforce certain policies saying that, okay, that API can be, invoked maybe 2 times. Like you can enforce the security. So here what we're doing is, again, we will create a API specification, and then we say, okay, it's going to be a rate YAML file, and then we apply that policy definition there, right? So what we say is, like, we'll change this definition saying, okay, this API, the rate policy should be applied to this particular API, right? So let us go through that one. So we'll set it says order API rate limit, and we'll say like maybe 2 requests per second, right? And then we will change, okay, the API that I want to apply this API, because you find out that in that definition, the API kind. So it can be applied for a resource level, API level, right? And then operational level. So here we say it should be applied for the kind of API. It says order API, and then we'll apply this policy to that particular API, right? So let it be deployed. Right. So we are waiting now the API to be checked. Like, okay, now we are checking whether that API is available, right? So let's go further. Yeah. Right. So the rate limit API is getting deployed. So it says that the order API limit has 5 seconds. Like it has been deployed like in 5 seconds. And then the next thing is that we will check the API definition whether it is applied correctly, and then we're going to use the curl command again to check the API whether the rate limiting has applied correctly. So we will try a few more curl requests here, and then generally what would happen is, if you make like 2 or more requests, generally the gateway should reject the request saying that, okay, the rate limit has enforced. So you find out that yes, here the rate limit has enforced. It came through the header saying that, okay, these are the enforced policies, and then the client would not be able to access the API anymore, right? So again, it has to be reset after some time. So this is a very quick demo on how you can set the rate limit for a gRPC API. The next thing I want to show you is the enable header modification. So the same way, like if someone wants to modify the headers, like so gRPC, again, you can send certain headers, and basically the idea of this one is someone can change the headers and instead of the original one. So I'll quickly go through, since we are running out of time. So here, idea is that we will get the information or get the definition, and then here what it says that right now the header requires a test header, right? So we apply that test header definition there, and then we will check. We'll go through the deployment process again, right? Let's wait until it is getting deployed, and then we'll take the headers, and then we'll paste the token there. And then now, generally, you can find out that here we send the authorization header. Generally, the authorization header is not the one that we expect for the authorization section, right? So it should be test header, right? Ideally, this will fail. No? So basically, what you need to do is you need to send, instead of authorization header, you need to change it as a test header, right? So that's one scenario. So if you change that authorization header as a test scenario now, since the policy is defined in that way, you should be able to accept the invocation, right? So it will work. So this is how you can quickly enable the header modification through the specification. The other command is that scenario I want to showcase here is enable mediation part. So again, this is again how you can enable the interceptors, right? So that's again another valid requirement that you should be able to intercept gRPC invocations, right? Either request or response. And then, of course, you can enforce your own customized policies in between. So generally, this explains you that how you can enable this backend specific resource. So here we have written like a simple Java interceptor. And it says that, OK, once you deploy this Java interceptor, we'll say the interceptor service name can discover through the Kubernetes resource, right, pod operations. And then basically it says that, OK, this is the image, and so on and so forth. And here we enforce some certain rules. Here, what we're showing here as of right now, we just add a customized header to showcase that, OK, this is how the policy is getting engaged. Now, what we do is like we have this image. We will redeploy this image. Let's wait until it is getting redeployed. Yeah. So we'll check the pods. So the interceptor pod has already deployed, and then we will try to invoke the API, right? So we can just go through the kube controllers and then find out, OK, what are the interceptors that implemented. Next thing is that what we do is we just try to invoke the API, right? And then you will get the response. And then in between, you will find out there's an additional header is getting added to the response. So that's how you can enable like interceptors between request or response, right? So this is also very quick sort of like overview of the power that you can accommodate, or maybe you can enforce into your implementation using gRPC, Kubernetes gateways, right? So this is more of like a short demo sessions that we have done. Yeah, so we are already running out of the time. So, and that's all from my end. I'm willing to hear any questions. If you guys have any questions, please raise. Yeah, I'm more than happy to help you out answering. All right. Do you have any questions? I hope. Yes, go ahead, sir. Yes. We have a set of large-scale banking customers in the APAC region. So they want to have this high scalability. And because they are moving all the workloads towards the Kubernetes as their organization policy, so ask us like, OK, what is the Kubernetes gateway that they want to implement? So yes, so there are customers, and also now we are working with multiple other vendors in the market to push this the product. Also, our internal tools right now, the cloud SaaS products, internally, this is the gateway that we accommodate. And something that we are working on right now, as of right now, you might have seen that we've only done everything through a command line. So it's like a developer friendly. But since this is like first version that we did, like more of a early adapters, we plan to bring through the control plane, like a UI. You can control all these features. So that's something that we try to put in our roadmap. Yeah. Yeah. All right. If there's no question, we're on top of the time. Thanks for listening to. And hope if you guys have any questions, please reach me out. I'm staying outside. So yeah, thanks. Yeah.